Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
PD Beats here for Popternative, speaking to Cary Elwes about A Castle for Christmas, which is dropping November 26th on Netflix. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Petey.
I mean, it's an exciting time. Holidays right around the corner, as you can see with my sweater. It goes without saying, cozy Christmas film. But the one takeaway from this film, Cary, this looks unbelievable. This is a stunning film. Like, this is such a beautiful film. What was it like kind of working from the eye candy aesthetic aspect of it?
Sure. Well, I had resisted doing a rom-com. Obviously, after Princess Bride, it's very hard to find one that would not be compared to it, And so I waited, and I waited obviously a long time. And when this script fell in my lap, I read it, and I immediately knew it was something I wanted to do. First of all, because the character resonated with me, but second, that I was going to work with Brooke Shields, who I just adore her. I think she has terrific comedy timing. And I knew that I was going to be working with someone who definitely understood the genre really well, and was going to bring her A game. And so for me, it was just, it checked every box. You know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. And everyone's gonna be able to see it on Netflix. I'm so excited for it to finally be out so everyone can see how amazing it looks. And such a fun movie. Myles, the Duke of Dunbar, that's your character. What was it like diving into the shoes of Myles, the Duke of Dunbar, specifically for this role?
Well, for me, it was important that obviously that first and foremost that we understood who he was, and what made him tick. And I worked very closely with Mary Lambert, our director, to delve into the nuances of the character to make sure we check those boxes. And then on top of that, playing a Scotsman, so I had to get the accent right. And I was very fortunate. I had a great dialect coach that they hired for me, and so I kind of stayed in character really pretty much through the shoot. And that was really helpful for me. And it was a chance for me to really explore a character I'd never played before. And he's sort of a really introverted guy who's very closed off and rigid in his ways. And he's hit upon hard times, but he doesn't want anyone in his life, and he shuns everybody. And so he's a little bit like Scrooge in a way from Christmas Carol. And along comes this character, this wonderful American played by Brooke Shields, who's called Sophie Brown, and she comes into his life and just turns it upside down, because she's the exact opposite. I mean, it's like oil and water. She's an extrovert. She's filled with, she's confident. She's filled with the spirit of life and love and Christmas and community and all the things that I am not connected with at all. And of course, hilarity ensues. That's really what happens when these kind of stories.
Absolutely. And it has a lot. People could expect a lot. There's, of course, a castle, there's snow, there's an adorable dog, right? Like, there's a lot.
I know. We've even got the dancing dog. I mean,
the dancing dog. You're a story. You are a storyteller. That's what you do. Is it safe to say one of your favorite things about being a storyteller is the fact, Cary, that you're able to dive into all these different worlds? You mentioned The Princess Bride, Twister, Stranger Things, Castle for Christmas. Is it safe to say that's kind of a highlight of what you love about being a storyteller, diving into all these different worlds?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was fortunate in that I had great tutors in my life. I went to lots of great schools to apply myself to my craft. And for me, jumping into the deep end with these characters and really finding the nuances that make them tick and how to make them real and how to make them alive is the challenge. And I find that fun. That's the fun part of it, and if you're lucky enough to work with talented people around you who are very supportive, then you've lucked out. And in this case, I really did.
And you mentioned, working on a rom-com, but you look at all the different genres that you've kind of worked on. Obviously, you go where the opportunities are, you look at the scripts, but it's pretty cool that you have been able to not only work on so many different genres over the years, but you've also been able to play a lot of different characters. The transformation for a lot of your characters has been unbelievable. That's pretty cool to look on as well, Cary?
Thank you, PD. That's very kind of you to say. I believe that either you give it 110% or what's the point? I mean, my theory is that that you try and surround yourself with the best. Yeah. I think it was Francois Truffaut said that about making a movie. Surround yourself with the very best people, and you really, the chances and the opportunities for you to fail are diminished considerably if you are surrounded by people who are more talented than you. And in this case, Netflix really, they didn't spare any expense in finding incredibly professional people to surround both myself and Brooke with. So we were really in great hands from day one. I mean, the production value on this film is second to none.
Amazing. But that's the first thing I brought up in the interview.
Right. Yeah, no, you're right. It's extraordinary. And they take their Christmas, their holiday movies very, very seriously. And for me, it was a joy to go to work each day. And I stayed in character pretty much because it was easier for me. That's pretty much how I roll when I'm playing characters.
Yeah.
And everybody was very supportive. So I was very fortunate. Yeah.
It's pretty interesting as well, too, where, with this film, obviously it's seasonal shelf life. There's no shelf life of a lot of these holiday movies where when the holidays come around, we keep watching them over and over again. This is going to be one of those. I guarantee you, this is going to be one that people are going to put on Netflix year after year.
From your lips. That's very kind.
But it's what do you think though about that whole concept? You look at The Princess Bride and everything's about the shelf life concept. Like a lot of the projects that you worked on many years ago are not really going away anytime soon. Like there's no shelf life on these projects.
I'm lucky. I consider myself fortunate. People say, oh, well, it's not so much luck, Cary. You have to be confident, talk about your talent. And I'm perfectly happy to discuss that. But I always say that you could be off making another movie and miss out on a role of a lifetime. So there is luck involved, being in the right place at the right time, and so if you're open and you're fortunate and you have some luck in your life, you end up being in the right place at the right time when the role is supposed to be yours. Yep. And I've been more than fortunate to have that happen on more than one occasion in my career. So, yeah.
Absolutely. When people get to see this film, we talked about how it looks, the love story, the rom-com aspect. When people get to watch Cast for Christmas, Cary, what are you hoping they get out of it takeaway wise?
Well, I hope they enjoy the ride as much as we enjoyed making it. I think they will. It's a holiday movie, obviously, but it's also a family movie. There's nothing cruel in it. It's a perfectly good-natured film.
It's a warm hug, right? And we need that, right?
You're the second person that said that. It's a warm hug for Christmas. They should put that as the tagline. It is a warm hug. And there's lots of good comedy in it. Brooke and I were very specific in our first rehearsals. We were discussing it with the producers and the director, and we said, you know what? If there's a chance to find comedy without pushing it, you never want to push it. But if it works for the character and for the story, and the moment, then we should explore it. And thank God Mary was very open to that, and we found some really fun places to go.
Absolutely. Is it one of those things too where you work on a lot of these projects, you work on this film, like when did you guys wrap this film specifically?
Oh God, we wrapped it I don't even remember it, so quite a while back. Right, we filmed it at the beginning of COVID, and gosh, I lost track of time. I was kind of like, I guess, February, March.
But is it interesting the mindsets from when you wrap it and now it's coming out? Like it's a whole different world, right? When it's done and now it's finally out. You're talking about it. What's that mindset change for you from making it to now? It's like coming out pretty soon.
Well, they moved very quickly. Netflix have a specific window for their films for the holiday season, and they have a number of them. We're not the only one, obviously. They seem to be very supportive of this one in particular. But yes, so we had a very specific schedule to work within in order to make the dates that they wanted to release this film. So we never felt rushed at any time, but we certainly were aware that we had a limited timetable to work with. So it's always weird when you come back to a project after a number of months, but this one stayed with me. So it's very much in my heart forever. I had such a good time making it, and I kind of gauged, those are how I kind of remember the projects I work on, how much fun I had, and the friends I made, and the experience I had. And this one was really a joyful one.
Absolutely. And keeping to the theme of Netflix a little bit as well, you have the opportunity to work on arguably one of the biggest shows on the planet, Stranger Things. Very quickly, what was it like being part of that world? Because that is just one of the biggest shows, one of the best shows.
Sure. Well, I was very, again, fortunate that I was available, and the Duffer Brothers, who are enormous talent, turned out they were big fans of mine, and I didn't know it, but they were. And their whole frame of reference for their work is, a lot of it is 80s movies, and so it turns out that they were big Princess Bride fans. So I call that movie The Gift That Keeps on Giving, Petey. You got me that. I mean, they were so adamant about me joining the show that they didn't have to twist my arm very hard. I watched the show. It's actually the only show I binge watched with my wife.
Wow.
Where we sat down and watched all the seasons and got up to speed, and we couldn't turn it off. It was so riveting and so well made, and the kids, they're not kids anymore, but they were kids at the time, were so dynamic and so incredibly talented that I thought, wow, okay, there's a reason this show is as popular as it is. And you look at all of them, and they are extraordinary. I mean, when I arrived on the set and watched their professionalism and the way they worked with each other and the talent, I was just like, okay, I really better be, I better bring my A game and times 500 to this show, because I'm going to be opposite these guys, Yeah.
No, I had to bring that up, but it's interesting to me too, because you brought up at the beginning of the interview, Princess Bride is brought up. That's obvious. Like, you've done so many amazing projects, and obviously the Princess Bride is one. But for me, to be honest with you, the two that I like to tell you quickly that come to mind that you were in all the time is, I'm sorry, like Twister and Liar Liar. Those are the two I have to say. Like.
Oh, thank you. No, I'm very fortunate. Those two films, I've been in a number of films that people seem to take to heart, and that's those two are very popular. Again, a wonderful experience making them. I got to play very, very different roles. And Twister, we got to go to Oklahoma and work. I was fortunate that I get to hang out with real storm chasers and meteorologists who taught me more about the weather that I still carry with me today. Liar Liar, I got to work with Jim, who's an old friend of mine, and
the Claw. I'm sorry, the Claw.
Well, we talked about finding stuff to do together, and so we did that, and I really enjoyed that process too. So absolutely. For me, it has to be fun. I may not take myself. I take my work seriously. I may not take myself too seriously, but I take my work seriously. But the journey is as important as the destination for me, and that's how I roll. Yeah.
Absolutely. Cary, I wanted to thank you so much for coming on Popternative, the chat about A Castle for Christmas. Thank you very much for chatting.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it, Pete.
So it's coming out November 26th on Netflix, and keep up to date with things. People can follow you right on social media, Instagram, Twitter. They'll find you, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative. For previous episodes, you'll be able to catch Cary Elwes in A Castle for Christmas, November 26th on Netflix. Until next time, this is Cary at PD Beats, signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.